Hello everyone, this is Manohar Reddy, Department of Cybersecurity, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today I am going to explain you the problem on a demilitarized zone in networking. Demilitarized zone in networking. So demilitarized zone is nothing but you are going to create a network in the secure environment. You are going to create a secure environment, creating the network in secure environment. So in your computer security, a demilitarized stands for demilitarized zone. A DMZ stands for what? Demilitarized zone, and also known as a perimeter network. Also known as a perimeter network on screened subnet. On screened subnet. So look at the topics that we will be covering this session. So what are the topics? What is meant by demilitarized zone network? What is the purpose of demilitarized zone? Why are demilitarized zone networks are important? And how does a demilitarized zone work? Architecture and design of demilitarized zone. Benefits of using a demilitarized zone and applications of demilitarized zone. So the main importance of creating this demilitarized zone purpose is what? For creating a network in two secure environments, creating a network in secure environments. So a demilitarized configuration allows for additional security. It provides an additional security to protect against external attacks, in local area network. So in the local area network, to protect against external attacks, we are creating a separate zone. So that zone is what? Demilitarized zone. And here the term demilitarized zone has been borrowed from the geographic buffer zone, and that was set up at the end of the Korean War between North Korea and South Korea. They were created a buffer zone which was protection purpose. So from that the word come here, demilitarized zone. And what is a demilitarized zone network? So a demilitarized zone is a physical or logical subnet that isolates a LAN from untrusted networks like the public internet. So this physical or logical subnet that isolates a LAN from untrusted network like public internet. So public internet is accessible for all the ones. So that is untrusted network. So creating a physical or logical subnet that isolate a LAN from these type of networks is a demilitarized zone. And any service that is offered to users on the public internet should be set up in the demilitarized zone. Network. The external facing servers and services and resources are usually placed there. So in the demilitarized zone place, these are all the external facing servers or services and resources. All these are placed. And the services includes web domain name systems, emails, proxy servers, and file transfer protocols, voice over internet protocols. All these are services. The services are offered in the demilitarized zone. And the resources and the servers in the demilitarized network can be accessed from the internet, but are isolated with very limited access to the LAN. Due to this approach, the LAN has an additional layer security that restricting a hacker from directly accessing the internal servers and data from the internet. So that layer is providing service, that layer provides security, that provides a restriction to this hacker from directly accessing the internal servers and data from the internet. Hackers and cyber criminals. Hackers and cyber criminals can reach the systems that run services on DMZ server. That run services on DMZ server. So hackers and cyber criminals can reach these systems that run services on DMZ server. The security on those servers must be tightened to be able to withstand constant attacks. The main objective of demilitarized zone is to enable organizations to use the public internet while ensuring the security of their private networks or LANs. So, configure the demilitarized zone network for all the web services, servers, mails, facing servers, everything is somewhat very important to provide security, for restricting unauthorized accessing, or unauthorized allowing. Unauthorized data should be allowing. So for this purpose, you have to configure demilitarized zone. What is the purpose of demilitarized zone? So the demilitarized zone network is there to protect the hosts. So hosts are nothing but your systems. The demilitarized zone network is to protect the hosts that have the most vulnerabilities. That means most of the systems are having some configuration disabilities. That disabilities are going to give the chance for accessing the system. So to protect that host that have the most vulnerabilities, DMZ network is important. And demilitarized zone hosts mostly involve services that extended to the users that are outside of the local area network. The increased potential for attacks makes it necessary for them to be placed into the monitored subnetwork. The increased potential for attacks makes it necessary for them to be placed into the monitored subnetwork, and this will protect the rest of the network if they end up getting compromised. An additional firewall typically protects the demilitarized zone from exposure to everything on the external network. Here are some of uses of demilitarized zone in some of the most common services accessible to users on communicating from an external network. So we are mentioning some of the most common services that are used for accessible users. So what are those? The first one is what? Web servers. So that is the most common service which can be accessible through demilitarized zone. So web servers that maintains communication with an internal database server may need to be placed into a demilitarized zone. For the purpose of safety on the internal database. Which often stores sensitive information. Sensitive information is nothing but what? The information which is lost the identity. The web server can then interact through an application firewall or directly with the internal database server, while still having a demilitarized zone protections. demilitarized zone protection. And mail server. Second one is what? Mail server. So emails and user databases that contain personal messages and login credentials are usually stored on servers. So the personal messages and the login credentials both are stored on what? Stored on mail servers that do not have direct access to the internet. An email server can build or set up inside the demilitarized zone for interaction with and access to the email database without exposing it to potentially harmful traffic. So without exposing potentially harmful traffic, the demilitarized zone has to be interacting with the mail servers or mail databases. Next one, FTP servers. So FTP servers can host critical content on the website of an organization. So most critical content. So the critical content of the websites of an organization and allows direct interaction with the files. So companies having websites, right? Websites having web pages and web pages having files. So the FTP servers host critical content on the website of organization and allows direct interaction with the files. Due to this, FTP servers should always be partially isolated from the internal system that are crucial. And demilitarized zone networks are deployed to protect sensitive systems and resources. And these demilitarized networks are used for what purpose? Isolating and separating potential target systems from internal networks. And reducing and controlling access to the systems by external users. Hosting corporate resources to give authorized access to some of these resources to external users. So giving the corporate resources to give authorized access to some of the resources to external users. So for this purpose, you have to set up your demilitarized zone network. And why are demilitarized zone networks are important? So internet enabled devices, whichever you can operate in the real time, the demilitarized zone networks are important for internet enabled devices on many home networks are built around LAN, which access the internet from a broadband or router. The router acts as a both connection point and firewall. So router can be acting as a both connection point as well as firewall that automates traffic filtering to ensure that the messages that enter the LAN are safe. So making the LAN is safe because of the making connection points of the routers and firewalls has to be make safe. So these are all internet enabled devices. Demilitarized zone on home network can be built by adding a dedicated firewall between the router and the LAN. So creating a firewall is very important. So that dedicated firewall between this router and the LAN. Dedicated firewall between this router and the LAN to be implemented. While this structure can be expensive, it can effectively protect internal devices from sophisticated attacks and possible external attacks. So it can effectively protect internal devices from sophisticated attacks and possible external attacks. Demilitarized zones are crucial for network security for both individual users and large organizations also. So it is very important. It is very crucial for what? For network security for both individual users and large organizations. The extra layer of security tightly protects the computer network by restricting remote access to internal servers and data, which when reached can be very damaging, and which when breached can be very damaging. So for that do not occurring all these things, we have to provide an extra layer of security that tightly protects the computer networks. And architecture and design of demilitarized zone network. So this is the enterprise LAN and this is the internet. So this is the public internet, and from this public internet we are going to this is an internal network. This is the public internet. We are accessing this internal network from public network by configuring demilitarized zone. So demilitarized zone is nothing but setting two firewalls, and that means providing additional security. So here one is firewall, here one is firewall. So two firewalls are set up, and in between this router, web server, mail servers, and everything. This is all in between the demilitarized zone network. So if any data is coming from public internet, can be accessed by firewall if and only if it is trusted. If it is not trusted, it is not able to allowing into the server, allowing into the inside. Even though it is allowed, the additional firewall can protect the data. Additional firewall can protect that from unauthorized uses. So there are several ways a network can be built using demilitarized zone. The two primary methods of achieving this are single firewall and dual firewall. One is for single firewall, using single firewalls, and using dual firewall. So both these systems can be expanded to build complex demilitarized zone architectures, and that satisfies network requirements. So here dual firewall configuration, we can call it as what? Dual firewall configuration. So the first one is what? Single firewall. So using single firewall with a minimum of three network interfaces is a modest approach to network architecture. The demilitarized zone is placed inside the firewall. The connection to the external network device. Is made from the internet service provider. The connection to the external network device is made from what? Made from internet service provider. The second device connects to the internal network, and the third network device handles the connection within the demilitarized zone. So that is what we mentioned here. The first firewall is connected from external network, and the second firewall is connected through demilitarized zone network. And the second one is what? Dual firewall. So using two firewalls is a more secure method to create a demilitarized zone. The first firewall is referred to front-end firewall and is built only to allow traffic that is headed towards the demilitarized zone. And the second firewall, or you can call it as back-end firewall. is in charge of the traffic that travels to the internal network from the demilitarized zone. To further increase the level of protection, firewalls that are built by separate vendors are used as there are fewer possibilities of having same security vulnerabilities. And it is a more effective but more costly scheme that to be implemented across a large network. And how does a demilitarized zone works actually? So suppose customers of business that has a public websites that must make their web server accessible from the internet, make web servers accessible from the internet to visit the website. So this puts their entire internal network at high risk. So customers of business that has public website must make their web server accessible from internet, so that your web server is associated with internet. So making internet is accessible to your web server is somewhat difficult. So at that moment it is having a risk capacity. To avoid this, the organization can pay a hosting firm for hosting the website or their public servers on firewall. However, this could end up negatively affecting the performance. Therefore, the public servers are hosted on separate or isolated network. So, accessing web server is from separate, and making a network is from separate. So the demilitarized zone network serves as a buffer between the internet and the private network of an organization. It is isolated by security gateway like a firewall that filters traffic between demilitarized zone and LAN. The default demilitarized zone server is secured by another gateway that filters the incoming traffic from external networks, and it is ideally located between two firewalls. So the demilitarized zone firewall setup makes sure that incoming network packets are observed by a firewall. The firewall or other security tools before they reach the servers hosted in demilitarized zone. So even if an attacker somehow gets past the first firewall, they will have to have access the hardened services into the demilitarized zone that cause a kind of serious damages to the business. If the external firewall is penetrated by an attacker, and a system in the demilitarized zone is compromised, then they will also have to get past an internal firewall before even gaining access to all the sensitive corporate data. A highly skilled attacker may sometimes be able to breach a secure demilitarized zone also, but various alarm systems and resources are there to provide plenty of warning about the breach in progress. So at that moment you will get some notifications or alerts are having during this attacking process. And what are the benefits of using this demilitarized zone? So the primary benefit of demilitarized zone is that it provides an extra layer of advanced security to internal network by restricting access to sensitive information and servers. restricting access to sensitive information and servers. And it allows the website users to avail themselves of certain services while having a buffer between them, and the private network of the organization. So between buffer between them and the private network of the organization. The demilitarized zone also offers additional security benefits like one is what? Enabling access control. Enabling access control. So simple point, if the incoming connection or incoming packet or incoming data is to be authenticated or authorized to the system, then firewall automatically enables it to access into the system. So here businesses can provide access to services outside the perimeters of their network to their users through the public internet. The demilitarized zone allows this, that ensuring network segmentation to make it challenging for unauthorized users to access the private network. So there can also be a proxy server included within the demilitarized zone, and which centralizes the internal traffic flow and simplifies its monitoring and logging. And second one is what? Preventing network reconnaissance. So providing a buffer between private network and the internet. So private network and internet. In between them a buffer is provided, which helps a demilitarized zone prevent attackers from performing reconnaissance work that is carried out to search for potential target. Servers that are within the demilitarized zone do get exposed to the public, but have an extra layer of security by a firewall that prevents anyone from seeing inside the internal network. If a demilitarized zone system happens to get compromised, the internal firewall will separate the private network from the demilitarized zone. So it separates the private network from demilitarized zone and keep it secure, making external reconnaissance hard. So that is the preventing network reconnaissance purpose. And third one is what? Blocking internet protocol spoofing. So here the hackers are attempting to gain the access to the systems by falsifying. Falsifying is nothing but giving unaddressed IP or false IP. That is nothing but IP spoofing, and also we can call it as. So falsifying an IP address and impersonating a device that is already approved and signed into a network. However, a demilitarized zone is capable of discovering and stalling such attempts. However, the demilitarized zone is capable of discovering and stalling such attempts as another service verifies that legitimacy of the IP address. This demilitarized zone enables the network segmentation to create a space for organized traffic and public services to be accessible away from the internal networks that are private. So that is the way of blocking IP address, and instead of using that IP address, you can spoof that IP calling. and the applications of demilitarized zone. So applications of demilitarized zone. So some of the various demilitarized zone network examples can be seen here. The one is cloud services. First one is what? Cloud services. So some cloud computing services used by hybrid security approach. So some of the cloud computing services such like accessing the data from internet or uploading the data into the internet, and that uses hybrid security approach and implemented a demilitarized zone between on-premises network of an organization and the virtual network. So on-premises network of an organization and the virtual network. And this is typically applied when an organization's applications are run partly on the premises and partly on the virtual network. Partly on the premises and partly on the virtual network. And demilitarized zone is also used where audit is required, for outgoing traffic, or where granular traffic control is necessary between the virtual network and the on-premises data center. So for that type of applications, we are using this demilitarized zone. And the second one is what? Home networks. So demilitarized zone is also helpful in home networks where computers and other devices are connected to the internet through a broadband router and a LAN configuration. Some home routers have a demilitarized zone host feature. Some home routers also have a demilitarized zone host feature. And this can be contrasted with demilitarized zone subnetworks that are used in organizations with more devices than one would usually find in home. And third one is what? Industrial control systems. We can call it as industrial control system, ICS. So security risks of ICS are offered potential solutions by demilitarized zone. Industrial equipment are merged with IT. Which makes for smarter and more efficient production environments. So however, this also results in a larger threat surface. And that much of industrial operation technology, OT, that equipment connected to the internet are not designed to deal with the attacks. It's not designed with the dealing with the attacks. So like IT devices do. So a demilitarized zone allows for increased network segmentation that can make it challenging for ransomware and other network threats to fill the gap between the IT systems and their much more susceptible OT counterparts, much more susceptible operational technology counterparts. So these are the three applications of the demilitarized zone which we can use in the real-time environment. So once again we revise the topics which we discussed in this session. So here the first is what is meant by demilitarized zone. And here we are looking the topics of what is a demilitarized zone network, what is the purpose of demilitarized zone, why are demilitarized zone networks are important, how does a demilitarized zone network, architecture and design of demilitarized zone networks, benefits of using a demilitarized zone and application. So we already know that demilitarized zone is configured for protecting the systems, protecting the servers, protecting the data, and all the things. They are configured as a buffer zone in between the public internet and the private network. Public internet to the private network. So here we understand that what is meant by demilitarized zone. So demilitarized zone is a physical or logical subnet that isolates a LAN from untrusted networks like public internet. Untrusted networks like public internet. That is what it shows, that the definition of demilitarized zone and purpose. So to the purpose which is for getting compromising of the data from unauthorized systems or unauthorized connections, to do not having such type of instances, the demilitarized zone has to be configured. Demilitarized zone has to be configured. And in these cases, especially in these cases, the demilitarized zone has to be set up. The one is what? Web servers, mail servers, FTP servers, all these servers. So websites, web pages, web data, web content, all is available in the web servers. And the mail servers, mails and receiving the mails, mail database, and all these mail servers having. And FTP servers also, file attaching, file removing, all this in between that demilitarized zone. And why the demilitarized zone networks important? So to do not loss of your data, to do not compromising the channels of your systems or network, we have to configure that all the data and network into demilitarized zone. So here we can observe that the architecture and design of demilitarized zone network. So this is the public internet and this is the private network. Private network can be accessible through public network, from the public network, public internet, through the configuration of demilitarized zone. Configuration of demilitarized zone. And here we can have the configuration like a dual type. One is single firewall and second one is dual firewall. How demilitarized zone works? So accessing the external data from external data to internal systems, the data gets untrusted, in the sense the firewalls can block the data. So benefits of using this demilitarized zone. So enabling access control and preventing network reconnaissance and blocking internet protocol spoofing. These are the three benefits, we can call it as benefits of using demilitarized zone. And what are the applications? We can use this demilitarized zone. Based on this demilitarized zone, we can access these types of applications like cloud services, home networks, and industrial control systems. These are all the applications that we are using as a demilitarized zone, as a secure zone in this type of applications. So that's all about demilitarized zone in networking. Thank you all.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.